Struggling single dad, stolen scanner, zero pay, and one shot at redemption. This true story will shake your soul. San Francisco, 1981. Chris Gardner is a man with smarts, hustle, and a painfully expensive product. He's betting everything on selling a medical device called the bone density scanner. It's sleek, it's high-tech, and it's basically useless. Most doctors consider it overpriced and unnecessary. But Chris keeps pushing because he has no choice. Every morning starts the same. He rushes his 5-year-old son Christopher to a Chinatown daycare, then hits the streets with a heavy scanner in one hand and hope in the other. He cold calls hospitals, begs for meetings, and parks wherever he can, racking up unpaid tickets faster than he can dodge them. His marriage is wearing thin, and the debt is suffocating. The daycare isn't helping. Outside, Chris points out a misspelled slogan, happiness, with a Y. That one-letter mistake becomes a symbol, a metaphor for everything Chris sees around him, systems that look good on the outside but are fundamentally broken. That night, Chris gives his son a Rubik's Cube, a gift from a colleague. While Linda, his wife, heads off to work a night shift, Chris sits under a flickering lamp trying to solve it. His life feels just like the cube, scrambled, frustrating, impossible to fix. The next day, everything shifts. Chris spots a well-dressed man stepping out of a red Ferrari. Curiosity wins. He approaches and bluntly asks, "What do you do and how do you do it?" The man replies, "Stockbroker." He has no fancy degrees, just sharp math and relentless people skills. That moment sparks something deep in Chris. He rushes home, excited, energized. He tells Linda he's applying for a stockbroker internship. She's not impressed. With unpaid bills and rent overdue, she calls it reckless. But Chris sees it differently. This isn't a gamble. It's a lifeline. Something real. Something that could change everything. The pressure boils over. Chris is behind on sales. The scanners aren't moving. The car gets booted and towed. And Linda's patience is gone. At dinner, she brings up their unpaid taxes. It's clear the clock is ticking. But Chris isn't giving up. He knows this life is slowly erasing him, and deep down, he's ready to rewrite the rules. That's when he walks into the brokerage firm to hand in his application, leaving his precious scanner with a street performer nearby, just for a minute, and that's when the chase begins. Chris Gardner sprints through the crowded streets of San Francisco. The street performer he trusted has taken off with his scanner. That device isn't just heavy. It's his last shot at paying rent, buying food, surviving. He chases her through alleyways and across intersections, heart pounding. But just as he closes the gap, she hops onto a train, doors sliding shut between them. She's gone. So is the scanner. Back at home, Chris hides the loss from Linda. He tells her he'll sell it soon. She doesn't buy it. Her face says it all. She's already halfway out the door. The tension in the apartment is thick. That night, Chris watches the news with Christopher. A professor has just solved the Rubik's Cube in 30 minutes. Chris can't sleep. He stares at the unsolved cube and mutters, "It can't be that hard." The next morning, with rent overdue and nothing left to lose, Chris marches to Dean Witter Reynolds, the brokerage firm. He's not waiting on HR. He goes straight to Jay Twistle, the guy who makes decisions. Chris barely gets a few words in before he spots something unbelievable. The same street performer walking by outside with the stolen scanner. In a heartbeat, he bolts out of the office. Another chase. This time, he wins. Chris tackles the situation with relentless grit and grabs the scanner back. Beaten, scraped, and furious, he rides the bus home, scanner in hand and Christopher by his side. At dinner, Chris gives his son a birthday gift, a basketball. Christopher beams. But Linda's checked out. She notices both scanners are still at home and snaps. "I asked you to sell them." Chris tries to explain, but her silence is louder than any argument. She's done listening. The next morning, Chris sees Jay Twistle again, this time hailing a cab. Chris grabs the chance and offers to share the ride. Jay barely acknowledges him inside the taxi, too busy fumbling with a Rubik's Cube. Chris smirks and says, "Let me try." He flips it, rotates it, and focuses. He explains the patterns as he works. Jay watches, amused but skeptical, until the final twist clicks every color into place. Chris solved it. Jay is impressed, but he leaves Chris in the cab, and Chris realizes he has only $5 in his wallet. Then the driver asks for payment. Chris bolts. He grabs the scanner and makes a run for it. But the device falls, and this time he can't go back for it. Chris crashes into the subway, barely breathing. The train doors slam shut behind him, but the scanner, the one he just retrieved, is gone. He watches helplessly as it's left behind on the platform. That homeless man again, the one who thought it was a time machine, scoops it up. Chris stumbles out of the station and into a payphone booth, sweat-soaked and desperate. The phone rings. It's Jay Twistle. "Call this number on Thursday. My secretary will set up a time." Chris frantically searches for a pen, but nothing. No paper, no ink. He repeats the number to himself over and over again. A friend bumps into him on the street, talking about a football game. Chris tries to focus and block out the noise, but the number starts slipping from his memory. He dashes into a store to write it down, clinging to every digit like a lifeline. Back at home, the apartment is empty. Linda and Christopher are gone. Minutes later, the phone rings again. It's Linda, furious. She missed work because Chris didn't pick up their son from daycare. She's taking Christopher and leaving, but Chris refuses. He arrives at the daycare the next day and immediately picks up his son, cutting Linda off. "He's staying with me." That night, their landlord comes knocking. Chris owes months of back rent. With a strained smile, Chris promises to pay up. The landlord offers a deal. Move into a nearby motel. It's cheaper. But Chris pleads, "Let me stay just one more week. I'll paint the place myself." He gets a 1-week extension, one last shot. But the next day, the knock on the door isn't the landlord. It's the police. An unpaid parking ticket has finally caught up with him. He's hauled off to the station. Chris tries to explain, "I have a job interview tomorrow. I have a son." But the officers don't care. He'll be released at 9:30 a.m., right before his 10:15 interview. He spends the night in a holding cell, sleeping in the same paint-splattered clothes he wore to repaint the apartment. He has no time to shower or shave. The next morning, Chris sprints from the station straight to still in yesterday's clothes. As he stands in front of the boardroom, about to be called in for one of the most important interviews of his life, he glances down at his filthy sweatshirt, his cracked sneakers, his hands still stained with paint, and he walks in. Chris walks into the Dean Witter boardroom like a man arriving from another planet. His clothes are wrinkled and smeared with paint, his face unshaven, his sneakers mismatched, and his energy completely drained. The interview panel looks up, stunned. This is not what they expected. Chris doesn't bother hiding the truth. He lays it all out in a single breath. "I wanted to come up with a story, something that would demonstrate qualities you all admire, like earnestness and diligence. However, the truth is that I was arrested for failing to pay parking tickets, and I ran here from the police station." There's a long silence. Then, unexpectedly, one of the executives laughs, not at him, but with him. Chris seizes the moment. He starts speaking about the one thing he still has, his determination. His voice is calm, focused, and magnetic. He jokes, "What would you say if a man showed up for an interview without a shirt and I hired him?" He pauses, then grins. "He must have had some really nice pants." The room erupts in laughter. For a moment, the sweat, the smell, the mess, it all disappears. What's left is a man who refuses to let go. After the meeting, Jay catches him in the hallway. He's impressed, but warns Chris about the hard truth. There's no salary during the internship. 6 months of unpaid work. Only one of the 20 interns will be hired. Chris processes it in silence. No income, no guarantees, but also no other option. That night, he heads home to patch the apartment walls. No celebration, just more work. Linda returns with their son, visibly exhausted. She tells Chris she's leaving for New York. A waitress job is waiting, and she can't take the instability anymore. Chris doesn't fight her, but he insists. Christopher stays. She agrees, through tears. Now it's just the two of them. The next morning, Chris and his son pack their things and move to a cramped, low-cost motel 2 blocks away. His only resources are 5 remaining scanners and a 6-month shot at building a new life. Unpaid, unsupported, and unseen. But to his son, it's still home. That weekend, Chris takes Christopher to play basketball. When the boy shares his dream of going pro, Chris, still battered by life, tells him to lower his expectations. But the second he sees his son's crushed face, Chris takes it all back. You got a dream. You got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. The past may have beaten him down, but that spark, still burning. Chris starts his unpaid internship at Dean Witter with fire in his eyes and a suitcase in his hand. No one knows that he and his son are now living day-to-day in motels and shelters. He makes jokes about his luggage and says he's off to Sacramento to golf with clients. But the truth is, every day after work, he sprints to line up at the homeless shelter, hoping to get a bed before it fills up. Inside the brokerage, he's surrounded by sharp suits, Ivy League degrees, and clock-punching interns who work 9-hour workdays. Chris has 6. He must leave at 4 p.m. sharp to pick up Christopher, so he has to outperform everyone, faster, smarter, and more efficiently. He doesn't waste time hanging up the phone between cold calls. He doesn't take bathroom breaks. He drinks less water. He's trying to save seconds, because seconds could save his future. Despite his hustle, progress is painfully slow. 2 months in, he's barely through his first call sheet, so he takes a gamble, skips the process entirely, and calls the CEO of a major firm directly. By some miracle, the guy answers. "Come in 20 minutes," he says. "Someone just canceled." Chris bolts, only to get jammed by his supervisor, who insists he move a company car. The door won't unlock. Time's slipping away. In a desperate move, he drives his boss's car to the meeting, gets caught in traffic, and arrives late. He misses his one shot. Outside the building, he sees the parking ticket already tucked under the windshield wiper. Salt on an open wound. That night, he brings his son to dinner at a cheap diner. He quietly fills out a check to cover the ticket and tries to mask his exhaustion. Christopher wants to go to a football game. Chris says, "Maybe." The boy replies, "Maybe means we're not going." The next day, in a bold move, Chris brings his son to Walter Ribbon's house, the same CEO he missed. He makes up a story, says they were nearby visiting a friend, and mentions the football game as if it's a real plan. Ribbon smiles, hands them box seat tickets, and invites them to join. Chris sits beside millionaires and decision-makers at the game, looking like he belongs. Even if he's running on empty, it's not a win, but it's a foothold, a face, a connection, and a reminder. He may be broke, but he's not broken. 4 months into the internship, Chris has sold all the remaining bone density scanners, earning enough money to survive for a few more weeks. It's not financial freedom, but it's a lifeline, until the IRS freezes his bank account for unpaid taxes. Just like that, everything crashes again. With no rent money, Chris and Christopher are evicted from their motel. Their belongings are dumped in the hallway like garbage. Christopher cries, begging to go back inside. Holding his own tears back, Chris knows there's no time to fall apart. They end up in a subway station bathroom. Chris turns the ordeal into a game, a time machine, he says, to return to the dinosaur era. He tells Christopher they have to hide in a cave. That cave is the bathroom. That night, as his son sleeps curled up on his lap, Chris silently sobs. He covers his son's ears when someone pounds on the door, demanding they leave. The next day, Chris shows up to work in a suit, holding his suitcase like it's just another day. He lies, says he's headed to Sacramento to golf with a client. That night, he rushes to a shelter and gets in line. This becomes their new normal, racing the clock for a bed, sleeping in shifts, hiding their pain behind smiles. Chris keeps grinding at Dean Witter. He studies at night, makes cold calls during the day, and shaves minutes off his schedule wherever he can. One day, he sees the homeless man who stole the scanner months ago. He gives chase and finally retrieves it, but it's broken. A hospital offers to buy it if it can be repaired. Desperate, Chris donates blood just to buy the part he needs. He finally fixes the scanner and makes the sale. It gives them enough money to spend one night in a real hotel. For the first time in weeks, his son sleeps in a clean bed, watches TV, and feels safe. Chris begins landing meetings at work with high-profile clients he met at the football game. He then starts closing deals one by one. Then, the final day of the internship arrives. His supervisor calls him in. Chris walks in wearing a new shirt, already accepting that this will be his last day. But then the man smiles. Wear that shirt again tomorrow, because tomorrow will be your first day as a full-time employee. Chris freezes. His breath catches. Tears fall. After everything, the scanners, the shelters, the hunger, the heartbreak, he finally made it. He walks out of the office, straight to the daycare, and picks up his son with the biggest smile of his life. This part of his life, he says, is called happiness. The Pursuit of Happyness isn't just a tearjerker. It's a powerhouse of inspiration, thanks to Will Smith's raw, soul-stirring performance. Rotten Tomatoes hailed it for rising above mere melodrama, crediting Smith for bringing heart and depth to every heartbreaking scene. Maddie Lucas from The Dispatch didn't hold back. Will Smith can carry a film. And carry it he does. Without him, she said, the story could have drowned in its own sentimentality, and Metacritic called it a genuinely transporting, inspirational movie, which works because it's also a cautionary tale. This isn't just about triumph, it's about survival. Real homeless people were cast as extras, and unlike many productions, they were paid fairly and fed well. No exploitation, just dignity on screen and off. That heart-wrenching bathroom scene? It's based on a real moment from Chris Gardner's life. He did show up to that interview completely unprepared. No jacket, no excuses. The movie just turned up the emotional volume. And while Gardner's dramatic collision with a car might feel ripped from real life, that part was pure Hollywood flair. A tension booster, not a biography. The Pursuit of Happyness isn't just a story. It's a brutal, beautiful testament to how far a parent will go for their child, and how the most minor victories can carry the weight of a lifetime struggle. Chris Gardner's journey reminds us that success isn't always about being the smartest or the fastest. Sometimes it's about enduring just one more day than the world expected you to. Through homelessness, heartbreak, and hopeless odds, Gardner kept moving. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but with a purpose. Because as he told his son, if you want something, go get it. Period. And maybe that's what happiness really is. Not a destination, but the stubborn, tireless pursuit of something better. If this story moved you, please hit the like button. It greatly helps us. Subscribe if you'd like more powerful stories like this one, and don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. What part of Chris's journey hit you the hardest? Let's talk about it below. See you in the next recap.